Hello everybody. Yep, I am still alive. Welcome back to the channel. It has been close to 9 months since I last posted a video. Thank you very much for those of you who have been long-term subscribers and want to know what's happened. I'm fine. I've just been very busy, work, etc. And I really haven't had time to do any videos, to be honest with you. But all that is going to change. So finally I managed to get out, take the vehicle for a drive and record a video for you. So what's been going on with the L322? Well, to be honest with you, not a lot. The last couple of trips that I did, the last video I did, I was down in Portugal. I've had some major problems with the brakes at the front, more to do with the passenger side caliper. So one of the things that's been done by Glenrad's was I've got a new set of calipers on the front. These are L494 Range Rover Sport. Those are the big 6-pot Brembos. They were done on exchange primarily because two of the pistons on the passenger side, the middle two, were completely seized, and it was giving me problems all last summer. You'd hit the brakes and you get this really bad juddering. We thought it was just warped discs originally. They replaced the discs. I went away on a long trip, and very quickly, after about 1,000 miles of driving down through France all the way into Portugal and Spain, started up again. So anyway, that's all fixed, and I'll show you what they look like. They are huge. I know that Rob, you went and saw it when it was done and made some comment about, wow, they're red. They were when they first went on. They're not so much now because they're quite dirty. I'm not going to try and bastardize. I went, look down below, you can see the name of where I went. On the Brittany coast, I went with a company called Grit Outdoors. I've done that before in the Defender, but I took this onto the sand trails. So this thing probably accomplished 90%. So there's a lot of chicken roots around it. There were some that were just impossible, especially for an air suspended vehicle. There was a Ford Ranger Raptor, I think it was, did absolutely everything. The thing was phenomenal. But as I've said many, many times, I really enjoyed doing that. There was a lot that it could do. There was some that I looked at and just said, nope, impossible, not going to do it. Because it just didn't want to damage the vehicle or try and push it beyond its limits. Could it have done it? A few of them it might have. I did struggle on one really steep hill, primarily because I couldn't get enough momentum. But anyway, had a great time. One picture I took from there, and I've been talking about this for quite a period of time now, 18 months, is I finally bought a Oz10 RV3. That was the first time I'd got it out of its bag and tested it and slept in it. Loved it. Loved the space. Liked the awning across the back. Like I said, this is the only picture I actually took of the vehicle with its setup. It's a great tent. The only downside is the size of it. It's a basically 2-meter tent, which has to go on the roof, which is just fine because it's just about 2 meters on the top of the roof rack. But yeah, I love it. For the longer trips that I do, if there's more than one person, then it will be great. If you're staying stationary for a period of time, it's brilliant for that. I still got the cot. The cot actually fits in really well, so I took the cot with me when I went to France. Yeah, it's great. It's a great tent. I did get it on sale over Easter. I got about £100 off it. Oztech were running a deal, so I took care of that. I'm also on a trip in the coming weeks, so we're now towards the end of May. I'm going to do Strata, Florida. I've done it in the Defender. I've not done it in this. I'm going with George at Grit again. I will probably take my cod tent with me, not the RV3, but we'll see. But that is coming up next weekend. I'm going to take some videos of that. And I'll take my camera with me, take the drone. Love to see what this looks like going up the bomb hole. Should be able to do it. No reason why it won't do it. But anyway, if I can get some footage, I will definitely do that, and I'll post that. So those of you who've been with the channel for a while know that I've been trying to get my Red Arc Manager 30 to charge my secondary batteries. I have tried everything I possibly can do, bypass the whole system, run cables to the start battery, have still not been able to get it done. Eventually I called Red Arc. They were puzzled, asked me to take videos of everything, double check connections, cable wiring, everything. They double checked, everything should work. The problem I was getting this oscillating amps going in. So although it could see it, meaning the Manager 30 could see power coming in, it would oscillate between boost, turn off, and then go from 6 volts or see 6 volts coming in to go to 12 volts and then turn off. They had no clue what it was. They believed it could have been a bad earth. I took everything out, I re-earthed, tightened everything up, still it wouldn't do it. So I called Klarman Automotive, so I spoke to Heiner and a couple of the guys there and just said, here's the problem. Sent them all the videos I sent to Red Arc, and they said, look, here's what you should do. So the way that this works is from the start battery, I go through a 150 amp mega fuse. That goes into the SBI 12. As you can see, that is on. There's an LED in there that shows that it's on. And then that will power through that cable right to the back of the vehicle into the DC hub. This blue wire here is the trigger wire. So if you have a later vehicle which has got ignition trigger, you can tap that into an ignition trigger source to fire this off. But I've got this hooked into the LEDs that I'll show you on the dash. So that keeps track when this goes off. So when 12.7 volts comes in, this will fire up. When this doesn't see 12.7 volts, it stops. And so the reason why I've got this trigger wire on is I've got an LED on the dash that I'll show you in a minute. So when this is on, I know that everything is working fine. When it's off, I know there's no charge coming from here to the back of the battery, which is all good. So when 12.7 volts comes in, as I mentioned before, you saw the SBI 12, this red light kicks in. And as soon as that kicks in, this is the blue light indicator for my BC-DC charger at the back. So basically what happens is when everything's running, I know when that's charging. So I know over 12.7 volts is coming from the start battery. So it's normally 14.3, 14.7 that this thing kicks out. So that's working, which means power is going to the back. When this is on, the blue one, I know the BC-DC on the DC hub is charging. When I turn everything off, which we'll do right now, this, when the voltage drops below 12.7, will turn off, and then this will automatically turn off as well. That's off. And then the blue one will go back to just pulsing. You might just be able to see that. What the pulse does, it indicates that the profile is set for lithium batteries. So all this is off. So now I know there is no charge going to the back of the car because the red one is off. As soon as I fire it back up, 12.7 volts is detected by the SBI 12. That will go back on. This will stop pulsing and go to a solid light, which I know that the BC-DC is charging. Buy a Red Arc BC-DC charger. They've got one called the Red Arc BC-DC. I think it's the 1240. It's a core. So some of those Red Arc BC-DC chargers are meant for under the bonnet. This one's meant for in-cab. It's a lot cheaper. So I bought one of those, plugged it in, bang, everything worked. I was seeing close to 40 amps going through my Red Vision shunt, which is there, monitors power going in and out. It was working. I was like, great. Now I can actually charge it. So I called them again and said, right, everything is going in. The Manager 30 is basically not seeing any of this, meaning I'm not charging from it. And they said, go buy a DC hub, wire everything up, you'll get close to 70 amps with the Manager 30 and the BC-DC, which is what I did. So I pulled all of the wiring out of here, put in the Egon DC Hub, wired up the Manager 30, the Red Vision system, the BC-DC, shifted everything into the back of that unit, because originally the BC-DC was sitting there down here on the side of my fridge, my kitchen. It was beginning to look ugly. So I pulled everything out, rewired absolutely everything back in, everything works. I now see consistently when it goes in boost mode, 74 amps being pumped in. So that is a combination of 40 amps out of the BC-DC and 30 out of the Manager 30, which is great because that now means I can take this thing wherever I want, knowing if I drive it to 2 to 3 hours, these batteries, if they are depleted, although it would be difficult to do, will get themselves recharged up really, really quickly. I don't need to take a solar blanket, although I do have one, and I got an input for solar as well. So should I be sort of stopped for a couple of days, I could charge in my solar blanket to keep things topped up. I still have my onshore power, so if you've got a campsite, I want to plug in 1240, that is all built in as well. So now, finally, everything works. and I'm ecstatic. And I'm actually sitting there driving down the road watching, I shouldn't be doing it, but I'm actually watching on my Red Vision monitor on the app how much is getting charged into those batteries when I drive along. So there's a few tricks in there. I'll put a link into what Heiner recommended doing. He put a video out there that sort of tricks this thing into going flat out. You do get voltage drop from the front to the back, but there's a real simple trick that if you do have one of these, if you take the blue wire, which is the ignition trigger wire, and then connect it to the input 12 volt coming in, which I think is the red wire, just connect them up. That will basically trigger the BCDC to say, go flat out. Don't ignore anything else that's coming in. If you see 12 volts, go flat out, which is what mine does now, which means it overrides any of the settings in there and just pumps out as much as it possibly can. So this is the Egon DC Hub. It's buried in there. It's a really good bit of kit. Everything is all cable tied down. You have to put torque settings onto these. You could probably just see it through here. But this is power to the secondary battery. Power comes in here. My BCDC is powered into here, which is now stored behind the back. And then my Manager 30, all the inputs are all down here. So all of that has been completely rewired in. That's all good. You can just about see my Red Vision behind the back there. So I can get to all of the fuses and everything in here. I need to build sort of like a box that goes in here just to cover up some of this, but that could be done at a later date. My Red Vision monitor is back in. I've got some more USB chargers in there, 12 volt. This now works again. This is the Wi-Fi for my Starlink, and then this is the power over Ethernet power cable where you plug the Starlink dish into this. So this is now, my Starlink is now running off of 12 volts. So behind the back here is a step-up converter that goes from 12 volts to 48 volts. There's a power, the Ethernet cable adapter that plugs into that. That's a shielded cable. This is now powered off of USB-C through 12 volt. That's all good. This is something my father gave me a long time ago. This is off his original Series 1. It's a 1950, pretty sure it was a 1950 Series 1 Land Rover that he had. Which I learned to drive on. But this one, if you see, it says Birmingham, and it's quite rare to find them with the word Birmingham on it because a lot of them had Solihull. This one came off when it was scrapped. Chassis was all gone, so he took everything off and kept it. So if you have any of these that say Birmingham, keep hold of them because they are worth quite a bit of money. Each one of these is about 100 quid, just so you know. So anyway, that's why that is there, is really to in honor of my father. So everything in here, things like my Travel Buddy oven, the water pumps, the fridge, all of that is controlled off my DC Hub. So the reason why I've done it, it just simplifies anything that has a switch, such as my oven, my fridge, which I can just quickly turn on and turn off. All of that is controlled through here. So I've bypassed having to go to Red Vision to run it. So everything is all powered in through the DC Hub. So anything with a power switch, all that. So my water heater is in there. As I mentioned, the water pumps are in there as well. So I don't need to worry about all of that. All of that is wired in. The only other thing I've managed to do is I've got a solar input, which you can see here. That comes off my Manager 30. Should I need to put my solar blanket in, then that is right here to be able to plug that in. Now what had happened with my two stacked batteries is when I was adding in accessories, because I couldn't go to my Red Vision because getting this out is a pain, I started putting all of my positive and negative accessories through this. So what you're supposed to do when you set these systems up, if you're running a monitor on the shunt, is everything that you put into your system needs to go this side of the battery or this side of the shunt. And then after that, you run a cable from your shunt to the negative side of the battery. So I've taken everything off, the negative, positive on the battery. The only two things that are in there are just monitors and things. So I've cleaned all of this up. There were about 5 or 6 things that I added in. Things like my USB chargers that were in the back of the vehicle. All of that completely taken off, now runs through here. It's brilliant. The DC Hub, highly recommend if you're going to build one of these types of vehicles. It's not that expensive for what it is. You can get them from Australia. They can get them here in about a week. But I absolutely love it. It just simplifies absolutely everything. And despite my misgivings about Mr. Andrew St. Pierre White's rantings, these products are brilliant. So I've got two of them now. I've got the DC Hub and I've got the Water Hub. If you're going to build one of these out, going to have fairly big secondary battery banks, and you do have some fairly complex electrical equipment in here, forget about wiring it all up. Just go get a DC Hub. The instructions are really simple. You can buy it with a kit with all the fuses. Honestly, if you can follow and read, it's easy. The other thing that's gone from here is that I used to have a red arc inverter. I had a 1,000-watt inverter. I used it twice. I was under this misconception that I needed to have an inverter to run the 240 stuff that I had. So the only things I really used it for was charging up my drone batteries or plugging in my Starlink. So I had this inverter, which was, they are efficient. Unless you're running coffee machines and you've got a 2,000-watt inverter, it's not going to really work in this vehicle. So that came out because everything that I have now is into USB-Cs or USB-As. I can charge my drone batteries running through a USB-C. I've now got 16 USB-C powered USB connectors. I got two 12-volt cigarette chargers, got USB-As. All of those are in two panels, one here at the back, one on the driver's side, on a panel that I built to be able to have all that. Now, the other thing I've done is every single piece of accessory electronic equipment that I put on this vehicle does not touch that start battery. So everything like the Garmin tread that I've got, the power from that came from the USB connector at the back of the console. That's all gone now. Everything that I had always came to the back here. So everything comes back to the DC Hub. So I have eliminated, and we all know these vehicles can be pretty susceptible to electronic gremlins. Everything in this vehicle now that I have added comes to the DC Hub away from the start battery. So it doesn't end up with any gremlins whatsoever, at least from the things that I've added to the vehicle. So that is a comfort to know that if there is anything that goes wrong, and I have had a problem where the battery drained itself because we were away, can't remember when it was, for about 3 weeks, and it sat there dead as a doornail. As soon as I tried to fire it up, stopped. So I had to go get Green Flag to come over and give me a massive jump with 2 power packs on it to fire the bastard up. So yeah, we know that we need to keep these things monitored, especially with the 10 and 12 models with the digital dash. Make sure you have an AGM battery. But anyway, I've got peace of mind now that pretty much anything that I have is all to the back of these two 100 amp hour lithium batteries, which again, I would highly recommend. I've not drained these things down, although when I was away for a period of time, there are a couple of things in here, I'm not going to tell you what they are, that keep things ticking over. And I was still less than about 20% draw on that entire 3 week time when I'd not driven this thing. So that's all good to go. One other thing, when I was away in France, there was a guy there who was in a Mercedes, I can't remember what it was, an ML, a guy called Parrot Fabrications. We were standing there waiting to go, and I said, I've got a question for you. What would it take to build me bash plates on the front? So we had a look underneath it. It is something I'm going to do. I'm just waiting for the right time to get down there so we can sort of measure everything up. But he's prepared to build me a set of bash plates for the front of the vehicle. As far as the winch, I probably need to put the bash plates on first and take the tray down there as well to make sure everything will fit and line up. So at some point I will go and pull the trigger on the winch. I've just been too busy, haven't bothered to look at it. It is on the list of things to do, although that list now is really just down to one thing, 2 things. Bash plates on the front and get a winch. And then, now when I got this vehicle 2.5 years ago, it did have these wind deflectors on it, and I took them off, and I found out why they were on, which means somebody had actually had these on before and taken them off, and there was a lot of track in here where you could see all the glue, and somebody had tried to take it off with a caramel wheel. So these are from a company called Auto Clover, so I went and bought them again. They come in a pack of 6, which is 3 each side, real easy to do. The only advice I would give you is clean everything first, put them on, press them down, leave it, don't drive it for about 2 days and they will harden. The only problem I've now got is that I found out that this door has now dropped on its hinges. So you might just be able to see this, but as soon as I open it, it drops and it just is clicking. And I found out on the top here that my door is now one of the hinges. So if you can see this, hopefully you can. The door hinge has dropped. And so it just nudges it. And yes, I have put them on correctly. It's all the way down to where you see this here. So I think the lower door hinge over here has dropped over a period of time, and so I'm going to take it to Glenrad's. The other thing I've got, a niggly little problem, is that this is really, really difficult to open now. And you have to sort of nudge it to get it open. So there's something going on in there. And ever since I had the vehicle, this has been here. This is not sitting flush. And then this trim piece across the top here is not sitting flush. And I think there are some brackets on the back here that are just not working. So I'm going to take this in, get Glenrad's to take the door all apart and fix it for me. There's got to be some clips or something in here. But anyway, they're going to take a look at it. God knows what's down here, because as I've mentioned in most of my videos, I drive around with my door open. So there's actually sand in here from going to France, so who knows what's behind the back of there. So hopefully next week that will go in and they will fix that for me. So there's one thing I've done. You can buy this. This is 80 grit, I think it is. You'd stick on. These get very slippery, especially if you stand on them when it's wet. So you can just buy this 80 grit double-sided, and this allows you to tread on this, and it gives you something to where it's not slippery. So you get this stuff off of Amazon. It's really easy to put on, and when it begins to sort of fade and crack, which I'm sure it will, just lift it up and then replace it. I've taken my trail light off. That was sent to me. I cannot remember who sent it to me. The 2 times I used it was for the pulsing amber lights when I was in dusty conditions and somebody was following me. That's the only time I ever used it. I took it off, pulled all the wiring out. These came from the sides. So again, I only used those twice, 2 sets of night wheeling trips that I did. So basically I took the ambers off. I've taken 2 white ones off. These are Heritage Studios LEDs, and put them on the back here. So the ambers are independently run through Red Vision. The 2 white ones are independently run through there as well. I don't have these hooked up to my reversing lights. And so if you look at Sam's Motor and Machine, he's got 2 on the top of his roof rack that are tapped into his reversing light. So I don't do that. I just want to run them independent. And so they're up there anyway. So these red hooks are for my moonshade. And you run a pole right the way through. It will just about fit because of the tire. You run a pole there and you can attach it. You can also run separate poles going up. But should I want to attach it to the vehicle, then that's what they are for up here. These are these red hooks. You've probably seen my Pelly box. That pretty much stays on most of the time. I can get it off. There's only 4 bolts holding this thing down. All my recovery gear is in here, like my jack, straps, all sorts of things is in here. But anyway, that's all put away in that. So the 2 other things that I need to do, I've got a catch can that I need to put in. I'll probably get Glenrad's to do it. It's really difficult for me to work on the vehicle in the road. So the catch can will probably go in, and I've got a breather kit as well. I just need to look at the breathers on the diffs front and back, because I don't believe they've got those sort of, they're not threaded. I don't think they are. And they're not very big. They're just sort of about this piece, and I think that they're like an aluminium tube with a vent in it. So I've got a diff breather kit. It's got 4 ports to it. I got no idea where the gearbox breather is, anything else like that. So again, I'll probably go down to Glenrad's and get them to sort of figure out how to put all that in for me. So those are the 2 things. A catch cam, which is all billeted aluminium, looks really nice. I have one on the Defender. They do work. Highly recommend them, especially on a diesel vehicle. and then get the disc breather kits put in as well. So that'll happen as well. And that's it. And that's a wrap. So thank you very much for continuing to support the channel. I've added close to 500 subscribers since my last video, which again was close to 9 months ago. It's, as the Duchess said to me, why are you bothering to record it? You get more subscribers when you don't than when you do, which is not really true. But if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm sure you've been signing up thinking, where the heck is this guy? Why aren't we seeing any new content? Well, here is some, and a starting point for you. So thank you very much for joining. And that's it. It's pissing it down with rain. I'm in Richmond Park. The aircraft are flying over and annoying me. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.